have come to the right place. It's Sunday afternoon, and this is the 10th Sunday afternoon ComFab for watercolor artists. And today we have Randy Globus with us. Randy has a terrific and fun background of producing art in a very unique way. I don't think anyone that I know of, and maybe I think she doesn't know of anybody who actually builds avatars and builds kind of a set around the avatars and paints from it. Very cool. I think there's a term for that, but I forget it right now. But we're going to have some fun. Randy's going to come and share. Just before we do that, I want to remind you that if you are interested in asking a question, as my hand dances across here and points down right there, there it is, that chat button. Just click on that chat button and type in your question and we'll answer it. How about that? What a concept. Or better yet, over here, there it is. I found it right there. There should be a button to unmute your mic. And what you'll do is you'll mute your mic and you'll ask the question live. We prefer that. Makes it a little more personal or interpersonal, wherever those terms are, but it's just a little more dynamic and hear your voice and the way you might ask your question. So I encourage you to do that, but don't feel like you have to. Just before Randy comes, would like to say she is very well known. She spends part of her time in downtown New York, and she has done lots of teaching at the university level and also at the international level. She'll share probably a little bit about that, and has been involved in many different projects, many different causes. Check out her Facebook if you want to learn more about Randy. It's the best place probably to find out some of the stuff for the projects she's done and involved with. And after I show just a short video, it's only just a couple minutes, she'll come and talk a little bit about her background and kick things off. So here we go. Welcome to ComFab Sunday number 10.
Hi, my name is Randy Globus, and I'll be showing you my astonishing avatars and how to make a large-scale watercolor painting. Here are some of the characters that I work with, and they all represent different people in my life. There are different friends or family members. The little marionette girl in the middle is me. And I make a lot of these characters from personal items that belong to the people, or sometimes the characters come to me in another way. Maybe they've been a gift from a friend, or I found them in a thrift shop, but most of them I've made by myself. This is a roll of 156-pound cold-pressed watercolor paper. It's 51 inches wide and 10 yards long.
Wow.
In the next step, I'll show you how to prepare this paper to make a large-scale painting such as the one you see here.
Hi, Randy.
Hello. Hi, everybody. I'm happy to be here. I'm looking forward to kind of sharing my stuff with everybody. And I'd love you to turn your mics on, and if you want to like discuss anything with me about what I'm saying or ask me anything, please just chime in, because I love talking about art. I guess maybe the best thing for me to do is I'd like to talk about this piece that's behind me. It's because like what I was thinking in the last couple of years, and maybe this is a lot due to
COVID and kind of being isolated is I was really thinking about sort of self-knowledge, because I found myself like having these knee-jerk reactions to things. Like sometimes my son might say something to me and I just feel like I react just so, it's almost like I didn't know why I was reacting that way. So maybe spending all that time alone, as most of us do anyway, because we're artists, I really started to question, like, where does that come from? Like, why am I reacting that way to that? So it was a bit of a search for self-knowledge. And these paintings that I've made before, like a standalone painting, I've always tried to like create a drama or tell a story about a relationship or something. And I kind of felt like they were almost there, but they didn't really tell the story, or they didn't tell it enough the way that I wanted it to. So I started thinking about what really influenced me in my life. Because like as an adult, like when people say to you, oh, well, what artists influence you? And I would like automatically think, oh, Vermeer and Wyeth and Toulouse-Lautrec, and I would think that. But then when I gave it like really serious thought, I thought, you know who I think the biggest influence on me was? I think it was Shari Lewis and Lamb Chop. When I was like a little kid, watching this ventriloquist talking with her little like sock friend, it like was totally mesmerizing to me, because it was like, who is she talking to? Was that like her conscience? Like, who is this thing? So, so I started kind of wanting to tell more stories with more characters representing different people or different characters. So I thought in my search for self-knowledge that I would create the devils and demons and skeletons in my closet, because we all have these things that kind of haunt us. You know, we all have these issues, like maybe there's self-doubts or insecurities or stuff like that. And I kind of really wanted to peel away the layers of the onion and figure out what are those things. So I'll show you my guys. So I created, these are my demons.
Ooh, they're scary.
They are scary, but there's also something kind of endearing about them, I think, like kind of like the Addams family. Like they're kind of creepy in a good way.
So you created that just from your head. You just started.
Well, when I create stuff, I mean, I look at images and I've realized, and actually subconsciously, these are very similar to, who's the guy who did Nightmare Before Christmas?
Oh, who was that? Somebody's got to know.
It'll come to me. I realized they're very
Tim Burton.
It's Tim Burton, but I didn't really we all have these subliminal influences, and sometimes I realize I make something like this guy right here when I made this puppet. And I was looking at him recently, and I realized, who does he remind me of? And he reminds me, do you guys remember, if you're of the right age, Kukla, Fran, and Ollie?
Yes.
Right?
That's who I thought of when you showed it.
Right? But it's totally subliminal. Anyway, so here's my skeletons. Here's a skeleton. I made a male and a female. And people kind of have asked me, like, are those demons? Are they your parents? Like, who are these guys? And they're not necessarily anybody. Like, they're more just those things that haunt me. Like, they are more me than they are anything else. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. So the other thing I was thinking about that kind of, and I'm sorry if I go off on tangents because it's just the way my mind goes. When I watch movies, and I've been very involved in theater, like making theater sets and stuff. I'm very cognizant of perspective and lighting and storyboards. So I thought, well, if I am to tell a story, then what I'd like to do, because you saw my little journals, how they're all cartoony, and I have I have at least 50 of those. Like, I mean, I have books and books and books of those. But I thought what I'd like to do is take that format to the next level, because when I paint, I don't paint in that style. When I do the journals, I do it in that style, but I don't paint in that style. So I thought I'd like to raise that style to the next level so that it be considered serious painting. And that's what brought me to do this stuff that's behind me. So the way that I went about doing that, and anybody, stop me at any time because I know I'm like yakking on here. The way I began doing that was I thought, okay, first I have to create the characters to tell the story about my self-search, trying to understand who is Randy Globus now that she's a senior citizen, what motivates her, and why does she react this way, and why has she made certain choices in her life? Because I mean, I look back and I think, like, I don't know why I did that. It seemed like the right thing at the time. So I made these characters about me trying to figure out who I am. So first I made the characters, which took me a couple of months. And I made them with, I made an armature out of like armature wire, and I covered them in cloth, and I used some, whatever that stuff, Crayola Magic is a great little kind of softy, easy clay thing. So it took me a few months to make, a couple of months to make the characters. And then I thought, okay, these guys are in the closet. So I took a box and I took a rod and I made the little hangers, and I put the box, I put the characters in a box.
Let me pull up a visual for you.
Okay.
So let me share a screen here. Okay, can you see that? Okay.
I'm seeing the softy guys.
Okay, so you were talking about, let's go down to the one, which one should I go to? You remember?
Can you go to the one that's behind me?
Yeah. Yeah, good idea. I think it's here. Is this it? That would be number 26.
I'm still seeing the softy. Oh, well, while you have that, just keep that for a second.
Sure.
Can everybody see me? They're looking at that, right? I'm going to show you something. Can you switch to me for a
Yeah.
minute? Okay. So see this painting, folks?
Ah,
Um,
that's
Right.
cool. So that's from, you took a picture of this and that's your painting. Huh.
right. That, like, because what I found is it's very difficult to get a large scale piece in a gallery show, let alone a multifaceted large scale piece. But what I found was certain elements can hold their own. So sometimes I enter just a panel
Mhm.
and I enter that in the show. And if it gets in, it gets in. So it's kind of nice to have the flexibility of either entering the pieces individually, or I always am looking for opportunities to show it as one.
Yeah, cool. Let's see if I can find the other one you were looking at, the one behind you. I don't mean to stop you, but I thought
Oh,
it'd be a
okay, I get,
perfect place to show some of these.
yeah, I could keep yakking.
Okay, I'll find it.
You could see that one, folks, since you see me, I think, you see the one with the clown face? It's over there behind me. So, like, what I do is I want to create drama. So bring I'll bring all the elements into a closet because I want it to be dark so I can control the lighting. And I'll somehow set up a backdrop, or I'll create a box. So it's almost like a little, I guess in the theater world, they call it a black box. Yeah, that's that painting. So I'll create kind of a black box environment so that I could control the perspective and the lighting. And I'll take, like, I must have taken at least 100 photos of me. I had my phone on a tripod with the timer. And I know this is a bit of a creepy painting, but I was just going through something. And you see how like my little avatar is sitting on my shoulder, because she's kind of my little Jiminy Cricket. So I had to devise a little seat for her. And there's a Velcro strap that goes like under my armpit, which you can't see because it's hidden by the clothing I'm wearing. So it's very much set up like a theater set. When I used to create stuff for a theater, like let's say you're creating a boulder, you might create that boulder out of a piece of crumpled brown paper, but to the audience, it looks like, a 3-ton boulder. So, I'm kind of into trying to create this, an illusion and a story. And the other thing that is on my mind about this is that I kind of feel like this way of making art in kind of the graphic novel way is not taken as seriously as a fine art or a standalone painting. And I was thinking a lot about like how Andy Warhol brought like the Brillo box into an art gallery, and Lichtenstein brought a comic book image into an art gallery. And all of a sudden now it's considered high art, where when it was in another location, it wasn't. So I'm sort of trying to say that this mode of painting, like sequentially, is really should be taken more seriously than I kind of feel it is. Like I read a lot of graphic novels, and of course there's an incredible range of quality, as there is in any art, realm of the art world. But some of these things, they're really fantastic, and there are no restrictions. Like a lot of these art groups have a lot of restrictions, and that's a little bit troubling for me, because I kind of feel like, well, art is really about not having restrictions.
Yeah.
So does anybody want to add anything to this stuff I'm saying? Okay, well, I'll talk to you more about this stuff.
Okay.
So these paintings is one that you see behind me. It's all transparent watercolor, with the exception, I've used a little bit of casein in the male, this guy, in his clothing. Just a little drink. And casein is a water-based medium that I started to use just within the last couple of years. And the really wonderful thing about it is it's a water-based medium. But once it is thoroughly dry, which can take 24 hours, it is stable and it won't move if you put something wet on top of it, which something like gouache would do. And personally, I'm not a fan of acrylic. I just don't. It dries too fast. I don't like that it's kind of shiny. Like any shine that you see in my paintings is not caused by any kind of shiny paint. It's caused by me making the paint give the illusion of being shiny. It's me just creating enough contrast and value that it looks shiny, even though there's really nothing
Oh,
shiny.
let me clarify. You're saying all your paintings are transparent watercolor, pretty much.
Yes,
Wow.
yes,
And you can get that kind of vibrancy and color with the watercolor. That's quite nice. Amazing.
yes. And I'll tell you what really helped me do that. Maybe about 15 years ago, I took a course in plain drawing with a pencil, plaster cast. So you're sitting in a dark studio with a spotlight on a plaster cast.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to render that thing in values. And every day, the class was 6 hours long.
Oh,
And they wanted the instructor, they wanted you to work on that drawing for like a year. And what the instructor would do with me, you know, and the drawings were on like 18 by 24 paper. The instructor would come over to me and he would take a piece of paper and he cut a little 1-inch square window in the paper. And he would say, why don't you just work on this area today?
wow.
Like, I mean, it was, you know, I felt like I was in the Renaissance or something. But this class improved my knowledge of value and my paintings to such a great degree. Because something that I realized was light has limitless value, but a pencil or anything you are using has a range. It has a limited range. And if you want to get the most volume and contrast in your work of art, you have to incorporate that entire range. And if you don't, then you're not going to get that much, or I wouldn't get all the drama that I wanted.
Yeah.
I needed that.
You're not afraid to use color. So that means you figure out what the darkest or the deepest range is. And so that forces you to stay somewhere in between there. I think that's a cool point.
Yeah. I used to tell my students that the mantra was, the darkest light has to be lighter than the lightest dark.
Hmm.
And they had to repeat that in order to enter the classroom.
How long did it take you to finish that drawing?
The drawing that I did in the class, it took me, I took 36 hours. But you're not seeing that drawing in this group of things. But it's a great practice.
Hmm. Let's run through a few of these pictures that we've prepared, and I'd like for you just to talk to them. There's some really good points I think that you would, I'd like for you to make. Let me pull these up. Just a second. There we go. Okay, let's start with this one here. tell us a little bit about this character, these two characters.
Okay. And if you guys can see me in the little group, here they are.
Yeah, we can.
Oh, okay. The reason I made these guys, these are avatars of my son and my daughter-in-law. And they had an anniversary. You know how anniversaries have a symbol like cotton or something like that? So one of their anniversaries, I made this as a gift to give to them, and I stuffed them with cotton. So these are my son and daughter-in-law. And I sold actually a lot of these pieces because, you know, they're kind of endearing.
Yes.
And they're sweet, where a lot of my other pieces are very kind of haunting. But
So
yeah,
this,
that's
now
my,
this is a painting, right? Of the,
Yeah.
well,
that's my son and his dog.
oh my.
And the dog, who I have here as well in my little collection, the dog's name is Jake, and he's a wire fox terrier rescue. And I made him, his armature is made of toilet paper rolls. Like, another thing I really like doing, and when we come back to me, I'll show you what my table looks like. I really like making stuff out of just stuff I have around my house. So, like when I wanted to make Jake, and I made Jake as a gift for my son for his birthday, I just thought, well, what could I make Jake out of? And I thought, oh, you know, I got a couple of these toilet paper rolls, and I got some scrappy felt around. And of course, I have googly eyes, like I'm sure all of you guys have like googly eyes in your house. In fact, I found that I'm a little googly eye obsessed. Because, like, when I go to any part of my house, I can always find a little container of googly eyes. And I think it's because, like, I always think, oh, I'm going to need them for something. So I have like little stashes of them all over. Like, I put them on my soap dispenser, and because that's another thing. I think when I was, oh, there's my son, who I put in front of the painting because I wanted to show the scale. And I think his avatar kind of looks like him. And he likes his avatar.
Now you've
So-
taken him, and now you did one with books in the background. These.
Oh, I'll tell you about that one. The one with the
There it
book.
is. Yeah.
So that's him and his wife. And the books behind them, they are in Japanese and Korean. And that's because my son lived in Japan for close to 10 years. And that's where he met his wife.
Huh.
And she is from South Korea. And they were going to school there. And that's how they met. So that's what that painting is about.
There
And-
it is in real life. Oh my goodness, that's cool.
Yeah. And the Cleveland Clinic Children's Hospital bought that piece. So that's in their hospital in Miami, their new cancer wing hospital for kids.
Now, did you leave the avatars there with the painting?
Well, here we are at one of the satellite shows during Art Basel Week.
Okay.
And those avatars, I cast them, like those aren't the sock avatars. what those are was I thought, oh, I wonder if these guys would sell as a sculpture, if people would be interested. So I built an armature, and you wouldn't believe, like underneath, there's like soda bottles and tin cans and aluminum foil. Like I built the armature out of stuff and covered it with a really thin skin of plasticine. And I brought it to this casting company in Miami. And they're actually a really interesting casting company because this is the same family 5 generations ago that cast the Statue of Liberty. They're a French family. They're called the Halagon family. And they moved their company to Miami a little over 20 years ago. And they do all the large scale and small scale casting of sculptures in Miami.
Wow.
And they're really lovely people. So anyway, I brought my model to them, and they cast it in plaster, and they made it in fiberglass, and then they gave me that fiberglass thing, and I painted it in the image of the sock dolls, of the avatars. So you see, there's kind of a lot of process involved in my work.
Tell me about this character here.
Oh, so that
A beatnik, or what is it?
that's my husband.
Oh, sorry.
No. Well, he was an artist, and I made that out of his clothing after he passed away.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because, you know, this is how it helps me cathartically to do these things. So I made that out of his clothes, and that's actually a shirt he owned from Winwood Kitchen, and he was a cigar smoker, so I made him a little cigar there. It comes, it's attached with,
Yeah, I see it now. I didn't wonder what that was. Yep.
it comes off with Velcro. And his sunglasses too come off with Velcro. And that little pendant, he designed that pendant and he gave it to his friends, and he called it the inner circle. For those who were close to him, he would give a pendant to. So I made.
Now what's the who's the dog there?
Well, that was Jake before Jake got inherited by Morty when Rick passed away.
Okay.
Jake originally was Rick's dog. So I had made a Jake. Sometimes I make more than one avatar for.
So this is him with your son then, I take it.
No, that's Rick with his identical twin brother.
Oh,
Yeah.
he has identical twin?
Yes.
Wow.
And actually, I made a painting of them, but I couldn't find it in my photo archives to display here.
Mhm.
But he has an identical twin brother, which is pretty weird because their voices are exactly the same, and their movements and the rhythm of their speech. And it's almost like when I'm with the brother, it's almost like I'm almost with Rick, but I'm not. So, and his brother spent a lot of time on business in Japan, and he frequently goes to Japan, and he's a liaison for Japanese culture in America, and he has the only Japanese tea room in New York City.
Mm.
So that's what all that Japanese stuff's about. And here's Rick with my son, and that painting is called Father.
Oh my,
Yeah.
there's the cigar.
And that's me, my avatar and Rick. And the painting is called Heartstrings. So I,
That's cool.
yeah, that
How big is this painting, real life?
30 by 38.
Hmm.
And most of my paintings are that size. I've only started to do a little bit. Did somebody ask something?
Do I have a question? What's that?
Florida.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, we had dentist appointments and doctor's appointments down here, so we came down here.
I couldn't hear the question.
Wednesday.
Must be talking to someone else.
Oh, okay. So I don't know if anybody has any technical questions for me, but you know, I mean, I kind of figure all you guys know how to paint, so you know, that's why I don't really talk about that very much. But I will, on occasion, like in the heartstrings painting, I use a little masking fluid for the strings, or sometimes, like let's say on this painting you're looking at right now, if there are a couple little highlights on the pendant or on the sunglasses, you know, I'll use a bit of masking fluid to make sure that I maintain the highlights. And I always work from the background to the foreground. And although I know this is very unusual for a watercolor artist to do, I usually work from dark to light. And I think it's because when I did that drawing thing with the values, if I could establish my absolutely darkest dark thing, everything else would progress to the light from there.
How do you get that fluorescent color? Is that fluorescent paint, or it looks fluorescent?
No,
That's
it is.
amazing
It isn't.
to get it that bright. I guess that's tell us a little about the colors there, especially the pink.
Yeah, I primarily use just Winsor and Newton colors. They're not fluorescent colors. You know, how it comes out that way, it's almost just like, it's a bit of a mystery to me myself. You know,
Yeah,
I just,
well, it's how you mix it and how you the combination there. It
I
has the
strive.
illusion of being fluorescent. That's cool.
Yeah, like my things give illusion of being metallic
Yeah.
or being iridescent or fluorescent, but I'm not using any of those, with the exception of the paint in this guy's clothing. I did use a little bit metallic with casein also, because to get the effect, I wanted the casing not to move so I could put certain little highlights on there.
You want us to show us your desktop there? You were going to show us something.
Oh, yeah. Because I'm working on a series right now, so I'll just kind of show you what it looks like. You know, so
Yeah,
it's just,
I see a glue gun there and all kinds of stuff.
yeah, you know, it's just like a whole lot of stuff. Like when I made my, I'm gonna bring you over to my Aunt Rena set for a second. Excuse me, I kind of hobbling over there.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so you see this
Oh,
little
there's a
set?
set. Okay. Now, did you make the table?
Yeah, I made the whole thing.
The chair and everything? Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
the chairs. You see the little cabinet with all the stuff in it
Yes.
and all the little things on the table. You know, it's like a stage set.
Yeah,
It's like a diorama
that's it. Diorama.
where like some of the characters, like the characters are 3D and a lot of the elements are 3D, but then then I'll create a like a backdrop as a setting. So it's very theatrical. It's like a little theater set. And all the stuff you saw there is just made out of cardboard and paper. And like sometimes if like when you get a delivery, there's a little funny shaped piece of styrofoam in the packaging, you know, I'll use that or I'll cut it up to be a shape. And, you know, once you cover it with a fabric, and most of these fabrics are, you know, I'll take a piece of clothing and I'll say, oh, I don't wear this. Like I haven't worn this for ages. I'll just cut it up and I'll put it on there.
Well, someone asked a question about, do you use a projector to get it up on your paper for drawing?
Do I use a projector?
Yes. Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, in the video I'll show later shows you using a projector.
Yeah. And you know, I used to not use a projector, but frankly, it takes so freaking long to draw it without a projector.
Yeah.
And you know, I just didn't want to spend that much time.
Yes.
So what I'll do is I'll project it for the contour,
Mhm.
and then very frequently, I may do a full pencil rendering under the watercolor so that by the time I'm adding the transparent watercolor, all the values are established. And I might tweak it with the watercolor, but usually most of it's already there.
Mm.
And I don't know if I mentioned also, like when you see these paintings, before I've made a painting, I've taken literally hundreds of photos of a set from different angles with different lighting. And I put them on my laptop and I go through them and I start selecting and narrowing it down. And after that, I make like compositions and I arrange them different ways. Like to this piece behind me, it took me a year to make it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And a lot of my pieces take a long time, but what I will do is while I'm working on a long-term project, like my Aunt Rena thing is going to be a long-term project, I'll do other stuff, like I may do journaling, or I may make a collage or something like that, because you know, you need a break from it. And I also I always keep a notebook and a like a little sketchbook like handy, where I write down thoughts or do like little quickie drawings, because a lot of times I think of stuff, and if I don't write it down or do just a like really quick little doodle, I won't remember it.
Huh.
So I've got like a ton of little books and just notepads lying around to write it down, so I just don't lose the thought.
Is this picture here, is this Aunt Emma, or what was it?
Aunt Rena, yeah. She passed away a little over a year ago.
Hmm.
And the reason I'm doing pieces about her, and I want to do it sequentially, the way I did the piece that's behind me, is I used to go and visit her frequently. And she was 96 or 7 when she passed away. And she was this, she was an Orthodox Jew. And I'm from a Jewish family. And Aunt Rena and we learned a lot from each other. And our relationship was very meaningful to both of us. And I think we both really evolved from it and learned from each other. And I loved her very much. And I loved that I feel like she taught me a lot of things. So I want to do a sequential series of paintings about my visits with Aunt Rena.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
so cool.
Oh, and that's her clothes. I made her
sorry.
from after she passed away.
Oh,
I
it's made from the material,
Her-
the clothes?
Yeah.
Oh,
I asked her son, my cousin Jerry, I said, will you please send me a couple of your mom's house coats? Because she used to always wear, we used to call them house coats. Please send me a couple of your mom's house coats. And so he did, and I made her avatar out of her house coats.
well, here's a whole series here. There we go. Some of these we've seen, but is this going to be a painting, or is this a painting somewhere?
Well, those are my refugees.
Oh,
You know, the one where the sea is parting?
oh yeah. Okay, that's the next. I'll show that here in a second. Good.
Yeah.
That's this one.
Yeah. And I'm only in that picture, folks, because I wanted you to see the scale of it.
Yeah.
It's 51 inches wide and 46 inches high. And, you know, that piece, I usually don't do pieces that are like a political or a social statement.
Mhm.
My work is usually much more personal than that. I guess that's kind of my narcissistic side. But, you know, there's just so much stuff that I'm so upset about socially and politically in the world right now, that I did this piece and I call it Refugees, because the sea is parting in hopes of all these different kinds of people that are fleeing oppression or some terrible circumstance in one way or other from their homeland in search of a better life. And that's what that piece is about.
Oh, that's really cool. That's probably the one we're going to end with. Anything, closing thoughts or comments you want to make? We just have a minute before we close up. Or I start my, I tell people about the next weeks. But you have done a superb job. You way past my expectations. This was just a terrific conversation, and the topic is just so unusual. I was thinking, maybe the other artists too were thinking it, but there's some, applications. You may not use avatars, but setting up a set that you paint, I think could have a lot of implications. And I'm already thinking about challenging a couple of my, thoughts about painting, of doing that myself. I love it.
Thanks. But does anybody have any comment or question, or, I'm very thick-skinned if anybody has any criticism, because I actually find it helpful. So if anybody wants to say anything, I love to hear it.
Repeat your phrase that started with the dark should be the lightest.
Okay. The darkest light. Like, first of all, picture a sphere. And if there's a light shining on that sphere, where the light stops, that's called the terminator, okay? The darkest light should be lighter than the lightest dark. So the lightest dark on the dark half of that sphere should be lighter than the darkest light on the light half of the sphere.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was a good one. I like that a lot. Anybody else have a question, comment, etc.?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. I looked at your website and I thought, well, I'm really not that into puppets and making up sets. But I am absolutely fascinated by your stories and the way your life is projected in your paintings. And I'm inspired by that, not to make up avatars, but to really work on putting my life into my paintings and liven them up with personal things.
It's a good point, Lynn. Right on.
I think that's how the emotional aspect gets into paintings, is by people having something personal in there. And particularly if it's a personal thing that you may not even want to share, and you don't even have to share it, but like my devils and demons, I'm not really saying what they are, I'm just saying I have them, if you know what I mean.
It's good. Any other questions? Okay, well, let's see. I'll tee up. I'm going to talk a little bit about the, and thank you, Randy. Really
Thanks
great.
for listening, everybody.
I loved it. I really did. I absolutely loved it.
Thanks.
ComFabs next week. We will have Vlad Yeltsev. That'll be August 14th. Yev will be coming and sharing some really cool tips. Hold on a second. Don't get carried away, Ron. All right, there we go. Is that right? No. Tips, ideas for how you loosen up at the watercolor painting process. Join us at 2 o'clock. Remember, all these confabs are free. Tell your friends so we can get together and have a little fun. And then following that, on August 21st, Bev Yankwit will be here. She's president of the Florida Watercolor Society. She does an excellent job, is just very involved, great ideas. You'll have to hear her on the 21st. She'll talk a little bit about the convention, the things and the features, things that you probably don't know about, some of the hopefully some of the backstage stuff, you know, maybe some gossip. I'm just kidding, no. But anyway, that's the 21st, and please join us for that. And she'll also be sharing her abstract paintings, which, by the way, she's won a ton of awards, and they're just absolutely amazing. I mean it, amazing. Be here. And then we have, in 2 years, by the way, Roberta Romeo will be president of the Florida Watercolor Society, so that'd be 2024. Looking forward to that, Roberta. Roberta will be here. She's very personable, loves to just talk about things that are fun, and particularly we'll talk about her painting and her process. She's really a superb artist, relatively new. So can't wait to talk to Roberta exclusively at the August 28th ComFab. Don't forget, it's free. Tell your friends. And then we have Charlotte. Charlotte Maloney will be here. Charlotte is a Tampa Bay artist also. She's terrific. Great ideas, great creativity. She tries about anything, and her vast array of paintings, sculptures, you name it. But she's going to be sharing some of her works and her journey. So that'll be on the first Sunday in September, September 4th, 2 o'clock. Did I say that it's free? And did I say bring your friends? All right, I'll say it one more time on the next slide. And then Jackie Mulsick. This is a great lady who really is superb in teaching. She teaches classes and workshops, and you'll see why she's a great teacher when you come on the 11th to see her work. She's going to be talking about whiskey painters. Those are miniature paintings, and that organization. So if you have not heard about the whiskey painters, you got to be here. And by the way, it's free. And tell your friends. So that's going to wrap it up for September, because the next 2 weeks we'll be all wound up and tied up with the Florida Watercolor Convention, which starts on the 22nd of December. I know you have all those on your calendar and you've already registered, because I want to see you there. We may have just a ComFab session, and it's kind of starting in my head now. So the idea is a ComFab session, and then you have a chance to provide drinks for me if you want, and we could chit chat. What do you think of that idea? Well, anyway, give us some thought. So next up, I want to, before I say goodbye and thanks to Randy, I want to show a video that will conclude today's confab. It'll roll over past the 3 o'clock time. If you're interested, it's a demonstration that we started the video at the beginning of the program, and we'll show it in completion now. It's about 14 and a half minutes, and she does a demonstration for the Florida Watercolor Society in 1920. It's really worth your time watching. So again, Randy, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you coming today.
Thanks for the invite.
And really appreciate it, Randy. And I hope you heal fast, and we'll see you at upcoming confabs. And now the video by Randy.
Hi, Hi, my name is Randy Globus, and I'll be showing you my astonishing avatars and how to make a large-scale watercolor painting. Here are some of the characters that I work with, and they all represent different people in my life. There are different friends or family members. The little marionette girl in the middle is me. And I make a lot of these characters from personal items that belong to the people, or sometimes the characters come to me in another way. Maybe they've been a gift from a friend, or I found them in a thrift shop, but most of them I've made by myself. This is a roll of 156-pound cold-pressed watercolor paper. It's 51 inches wide and 10 yards long. In the next step, I'll show you how to prepare this paper to make a large-scale painting such as the one you see here. To prepare this large paper off the roll, I've measured the length that I'd like it to be. And then I will take a spray bottle and I will dampen all the paper, not soaking wet, just damp. And I'll spread the water around with a clean rag so we don't get a lot of uneven bumps. And then when the paper is damp, I'll score the paper with a burnishing tool and make a nice crease. And when that crease is damp, then I'm able to tear it and maintain the nice deckled edge that watercolor paper has. The following day, I'll take that large sheet of paper I've now created, flip it over, and I'll dampen the other side and let that dry completely. And that makes the paper pretty nice and flat to work on. This is how you score and tear watercolor paper to keep that nice deckled edge. Burnishing tool, but I guess you could use any kind of a blunt pointed tool. Okay, I have a pencil line there. I'm putting a nice crease with the burnishing tool. And I'm putting weight on the straight edge. And I'm lifting and tearing. And then you get that nice deckled edge that we like with watercolor paper. My work is very content driven. I'm trying to tell a story about the characters in the painting and the relationship they have to each other. So I'll set up a still life and do a photo session with different compositions and different lighting to see what kind of feelings I can evoke. And the little marionette girl in this particular painting, her name is Puppet. She's always my avatar. And the other little character in the painting is an avatar of a close friend of mine. And all the elements in this still life setup were gifts given to me by close friends. The title of the painting wound up being Old Friends. Now that I've selected an image from the photo session I did with the still life characters, I'm going to project this image onto the large sheet of paper that I made, and I'm going to lightly draw the contour lines of the basic shapes. Just for the purpose of clarification, this is the finished painting that I'm recreating the process of, so you could see how I've come to make this. The next step that I want to do is create a mask so that I could lay in the background. To create the mask, I need some kind of a transparent material so I could see the light pencil drawing that I put on the large paper. I don't use tracing paper because in the past I've had paint soak through the tracing paper onto my watercolor paper, and I don't want that to happen. And I also don't want to spend a lot of money on something like prepared acetate. So I may take a clear recycling bag, like one of these, and I'll cut it open so that I'll just create like a big, thin sheet of transparent, waterproof material. Sometimes on a large piece such as this, I may tape a couple of bags together to make a very, very large mask. You'll want to tape down the plastic because you don't want it to move, then your mask won't line up. And you need to use a waterproof pen when you're going over the lines to indicate the part you want to mask. Now it's time to cut the mask. I take a piece of cardboard and I slip it under the mask, or I take the mask off the watercolor paper completely. You just don't want to cut directly on the watercolor paper. And with a number 11 X-Acto knife, I carefully cut out the mask on the line that I made with the waterproof pen. Now it's time for me to make some decisions about the background. The mask is ready, the paper is ready. What I'm thinking about most is value. I work from dark to light, and I work from background to foreground. I save the most important focal point of the painting for last, because everything exists in relation to everything else. I want to have a very dark value in the background because I want a full range of values. Then I have much more depth and form to play with. And I also want to direct the light in the background to my focal point. So value is very important. The other thing I think about is, do I want a warm or a cool or a neutral color in the background? So those are considerations, but my most important consideration is value, because if the value is right, everything else is going to feel. So here we are. We've got the mask on the paper. I'm working on the floor. I want to weigh down the edges of the mask. And I call these penny weights, although they're not penny weights, because penny weights are actually 1.6 pennies. But you know, everybody has a bunch of pennies around, so they kind of act like good weights for my mask. And I don't use tape to weigh down the edges of my mask, because for me that would be a disaster waiting to happen. So I just put pennies all around the edges of the mask to hold it in place. For this particular painting, I sprayed the background, and I work with the professional grade transparent watercolors that come in tubes. The pigments are much more permanent and much more saturated than the lesser quality watercolors. So I spray this background completely, and I only go in the direction heading out from the mask. And you've got to let this stuff dry overnight. And then sometimes I go in with a brush and spread it around, or a rag or a sponge, but I'll cover this area completely, and that will be my background. The background of this particular painting, when the spray was dry, I went in and I redampened it a little bit. And then with a clean rag that was damp, I spread the paint around. Now, sometimes I use a big brush like this, or sometimes I use a sponge. It depends on the effect that I want to get. But I wait until the following day after the paint has dried, because initially the paint is just too wet to work with. So the next day you can make it kind of as wet as you want it to be to create different values in the background with a sponge or a brush or a rag. You kind of see what kind of effects you'd like to get.